Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's always great to have you join us, and we appreciate all of your love and all of your support. This is Africa Sports Consultancy, streaming live with our weekly video. And this week, we have a special one this week. This week, we have with us in studio Mpilo Njoloza. Milo, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Mamzi. How are you doing?
Nah, I'm great. I think before we start, I always ask for a favor if we can just start a watch party quickly on Facebook so we can spread the message wide and far as we can. So I'm going to start one on my side. And you can start one too.
All right.
So Mpilo Njoloza is one of our top cricketers from the first class setup who is recently retired from the scene. And Mpilo, is it okay if I call you Milo? I hear everyone calls you Milo.
Go for it, Sam. Go for it.
So tell me, I think let's start there. Milo, where did that come from?
So it came from, I think, primary school, or maybe actually high school, to be fair about it. So the name is Mpilo, and with people finding difficulty in saying Mpilo, and then I ended up becoming Milo. But I feel like everyone kind of caught on to the name, and I also kind of accepted it.
Milo, you're disappointing me. I thought there was a great story to this name.
No, but there's actually no great story. That's actually because Mpilo without the P is actually Milo.
Oh, yes. Now I'm catching on. Okay.
Yeah.
No, at least it's not one long story that maybe is not for public consumption. So at least we got the short story. So Milo, we're here. Who is Milo? Let's start there. Who is Milo?
Mpilo is a fellow from East London, born this side, went to school at Hudson Park from primary school up until high school, and then left high school and went to Port Elizabeth to study that side, after which went to Cape Town to also study at UWC and also play provincial cricket for Western Province. So that's the gist of who Milo is.
So Milo, you've gone into professional cricket. How did that come about? Is it something that you've always wanted to do? Is it an opportunity that came up?
To be honest with you, I'm actually more of a rugby follower and a rugby lover, but I went with cricket because of, obviously, it was a thing of my coach in high school. He, I think, instilled those values of actually following cricket instead of rugby after high school, because I to get an offer at the Shots Academy after school to go that side, but I decided to pursue cricket.
Okay, I didn't budget for that side of the story. So rugby, Milo, rugby. Yes. I didn't put you and rugby together. Tell us a little bit more about rugby.
Mumsy, I actually played rugby since primary school, to be honest. Rugby and cricket, because obviously in primary school you had to have a summer sport, and then in winter you had to have a winter sport. So it was a thing of I kind of got involved, and the rugby bug with me with the cricket bug, and ever since primary school I played cricket and rugby during obviously winter and summer.
What position did you play out of interest?
I actually played flyer, believe it or not, Mums.
I was just laughing quietly there. Mpilo Njoloza, the fly half, who's turned into a professional cricketer. So that step, obviously from high school, you've said you've gone from PE, and then you've gone to Cape Town, and you're straight into professional cricket. How did that come about in itself?
In itself, Mamzi, it came about in January. I was still studying at NMMU at the time, and I was part of the Eastern Province Academy. So I kind of did well for the academy side, and I made my debut on the 26th of Jan in 2008 against SWD. And to correct it, I actually never played for SWD. I made my debut against SWD in Oudtshoorn. And that's how the whole professional setup of things came about.
And you getting there, obviously, you've come from high school and you're getting there, you're rubbing shoulders, probably with guys you used to watch and look up to. How was that step up, obviously, going from high school cricket into professional cricket?
I think at the time, even the professional cricketers were playing club cricket quite a lot. And it was actually a great thing for the youngsters, having to play against professional cricketers already at club cricket. And making that step up then to professional ranks was also a bit of an eye-opener, because obviously, like you say, there's guys that you're watching on TV, and now these are guys that you're training with. So it took some time to get used to, but obviously, as time went along, the guys are also human beings, and they're also pretty nice towards you. So kind of settled in.
Fantastic. And do you remember what happened on your debut?
Yes, I do. We actually, it was actually a very interesting game. We lost in the last hour, and I was batting with a guy named Corbin Dolly. I think we'd had an hour and a half partnership, and I think it was in the last 10 minutes, I got stumped down the leg side, and we lost that game.
Now, what shot were you playing when you were stumped, Milo?
The keeper was up. It was a medium pace of bowling, so I was trying to flick it down to the leg side, and I obviously fell over, being the low order batter that I am, and got stumped. Brilliant stumping though from the guy, if you're honest about it.
I'm sure it was. I'm pretty sure it was. It was a seamer. In my mind, I had budgeted you running down the wicket and taking a swipe across the line.
So no, I was batting for the team at that time, as in for time. So it was never a matter of me coming down the wicket. I was defending.
Oh, fantastic. And your bowling. Who was your first wicket in first class cricket?
My first wicket in first class cricket was Sammy Joe Affinity. It's actually a guy that I was with in the Eastern Province Academy the year before, because what they do at SWD is they send one player down to the Eastern Province Academy every year. And it was actually him. He was opening the batting for SWD. Had obviously left PE and gone back to Oudtshoorn.
Now, talk us through that dismissal. I'm sure you remember it.
I'd opened the bowling with Andrew Birch, and he sent me to. I knew obviously from the academy that his front foot, so I'd obviously went with I think 3 deliveries going away from him, and then I got him leaving the ball, hitting him on the pad.
Wow, what a setup. Milo, you seem to have been setting up the guys from day one. And now talk us through your career. You played majority of your cricket at Western Province. How was that journey for you?
Majority of the cricket was actually at Eastern Province and Western Province, Mamzi, because I was in PE for I think 6 years, playing for Eastern Province and studying at NMMU. And it was also, a bit of a tough time, because obviously there was also the studies, and being a student athlete is, I think, something that I'd say to anyone out there that they should actually look to get involved in, because I mean, it sets you up very well for when you obviously finish up playing. Because even having left PE, I'd gone to Cape Town, and that's where obviously I got to legendary Godwill Mamiyo, and I actually got to rub shoulders with guys that have also played international cricket. So it was a big step up for me, but I enjoyed it a lot.
Now, you've touched on an aspect that is often overlooked. So you've touched on being a student athlete and juggling professional cricket and your studies. How did you manage to get that balance right?
Manzi, it needs a lot of discipline, if I'm honest with you, because obviously being in varsity, it was very difficult. And especially at that time, I mean, there was 13 games that were played in the season, where there's actually 10 now. So you'd obviously leave, and undergrad is obviously a bit more demanding, because you have practicals, you have your tuts, you have your tests. So it was very demanding, but like I said, a lot of discipline is needed when it comes to being a student athlete.
So what is your secret? What's one thing that you would tell anyone who wants to go into that student athlete route? What was your recipe to your success?
I think the recipe to success was definitely the discipline, and also giving yourself time, because obviously there's not much time, but I think also planning goes a long way in determining how you're going to spend your day, because if you actually write down everything that you need to do during the day and you actually see it and it's visual, I think that also kind of also weighs up on your ego, and you actually want to actually get to do something. So I think also planning and discipline are definitely two things I'd say to anyone that they should have going forward.
And like you've said, you've played quite a bit of first-class cricket. You've done a bit of studies on the side, which I want to tap into as we go further into this. But obviously, you've gone through ups and downs while you were playing your first-class cricket. What do you remember as one of your toughest periods playing first-class cricket?
My toughest period, Mumsy, was I think starting up in the Eastern Province side, and obviously at that time, you're opening bowler and you only probably bowl 5 overs, and then that was you for the day. And you're a youngster, but you're not going to be obviously saying anything towards the skipper or the coach, and you're only bowling 5-6 overs in the day's play. And then obviously as time goes, you're not getting wickets, and then you obviously are also gonna be scrutinized and get dropped. So I think those things are also part and parcel of the game of cricket, and it's something that also molded me, I think, to be the kind of person that I am today, because I feel like at that time, had I maybe opened up my mouth, I'm maybe going to get more opportunities, but who knows? So, yeah, I think that's one thing that sticks out for me.
So I've taken you all the way to the south, but I want to take you to the north really quickly. Domestic player of, provincial player of the year. That must be a big deal to you.
It's a massive deal to me. Very, very big deal to me. And I think this is also something that I was telling a few guys as well, that, that season, Mumsy, I played with a lot of freedom. And it's very difficult, being a player that's on contract to play with a bit of freedom, because, obviously everything is scrutinized, because you're obviously waiting for your next contract. So that season, it was a season where I was playing with a lot of freedom. And, I think, Mumsy, that helped me a lot, because obviously I also wasn't studying. I think that's also another thing that I must really tap into, that I wasn't studying at the time. So obviously I had more time to also work on my skill, where if you're studying and playing provincial cricket, it's a bit difficult, because you also want to go to club training. So those are things that I think weighed in my favor, and I actually performed that season and ended up getting the CSA Player of the Year.
Absolutely amazing achievement. For all those who've just tuned in, we are chatting to Mpilo Njoloza, former first-class cricketer in South Africa, who, as you've just heard, was the CSA Provincial Player of the Year just before he retired. So, Milo, that's where I want to really jump into. You've just won that award, and before you know it, you're retiring. How has that gone about?
Mumsy, it was a very tough decision, if I can be honest with you. It was obviously thought out. It wasn't just a hasty decision. But I think, Mumsy, as well, I was in the semi-provincial setup for a good, 10 years, and I was a student. So, I could obviously survive on the contract money, if I can put it that way, when I was a student. But, going forward, I wasn't getting any offers to play higher up. And, my age was also not on my side. So it comes back to that thing of being a student. And, I realized, look, if I don't carry on with this cricket thing, and I also had a son in that same year, in November 2018. So those are also things that I was weighing up, and I obviously had to look to make more money. So that was actually based on that decision, Mumsy.
Wow, well planned out. Professional cricketer, student athlete, and now you've moved on, and you're working. You're a 9 to 5 sort of man. What do you do for a living, Milo?
I'm an educator. I'm an educator at a school called Kusile Comprehensive School. It's actually a school that's very close to my heart, because my grandfather was actually the founder of the school. So I've been working this side in East London now since I came down from Cape Town in March. So I do that as a teacher, and then I also coach youngsters in the afternoon cricket.
What subjects do you teach, just out of interest?
Pardon me?
What subjects do you teach?
Oh, science and geography.
Oh, wow. We've got a scientist slash geologist in the building. And how have you found that? Obviously, you've gone from playing high intensity professional cricket. Now you're in, and I'm guessing we are seeing the softer side of Milo in the classroom, leading and showing the youngsters the way.
Hey, man. I think it was very difficult at first, Mamzi, if I'm honest with you, because obviously you were so used to going to training, coming back, doing whatever you needed to do, whereas now it's 9 to 5. So it took a lot of adjustment, but obviously just with anything, you get used to something. And currently, I'm actually enjoying what I'm doing in my life right now. So I'm actually in a very happy space. So I decision to leave the game was obviously something that I didn't take lightly, but it was something that I did, and yeah, I'm carrying on now.
So you hear a lot about professional athletes who go away from playing their sport that they're involved in, and then going into a lull and struggling with mental issues, mental health issues. Have you had, and look, it's something that's not often spoken about, but how did you cope during that transition period?
To be honest with you, Mamzi, it was very tough. I mean, like you say, it's not something that's spoken about, but I think it is something that must be spoken about because everyone, not everyone, but especially most professional sportsmen to go through it. So it's a matter of, Mamzi, you were so used to, like I said, having a bit of freedom. Not having freedom, but I mean, you obviously go to training, but you have a lot of time on your hands, and then you go to a 9 to 5. And I mean, you also get guys that don't get into that 9 to 5, Mamzi, sitting at home, doing, and not everyone gets lucky with a job. So I think that's also something that I was lucky in that I also had my family, around to support me during those times. But I was lucky in that I at least had a job to obviously have something to do.
Wow, and you hear 2020 and now everyone's had their own sort of struggle, and you're here blessed with a job. You've walked out of one that you've loved and seemingly into another one that you absolutely love and adore. So kudos to you. And it looks like you've had a great year, haven't you?
Mamzi, I can't call it great. Obviously, the COVID was also, something that kind of also stopped plans, because I was also planning on going over this year to go and play in England. So that's also something that I was looking forward to. But obviously, the lockdown and Cyril obviously stopping us from going over. So yeah.
Yeah, and look, you've adjusted pretty well, and I'm sure majority of people have gone through the same sort of struggles that you've gone through, all these plans, and 2020 has come out and just flipped them upside down, and you've had to innovate and be very light on your feet, which you surely have done. And again, you sound very open-minded and someone who's planned his journey pretty well. And what lessons do you take from the kids? I'm sure obviously you're an educator, but while you're also in the classroom there's got to be some lessons you take from the kids as well.
I think that exuberance of youth will always be something that the kids will always possess. And I think also, having to be a good communicator and listening to also the kids, it's not always now just about me speaking or barking order towards them. I mean, as well, I need to be able to listen to what they have to say and working with them because, I mean, they're also very, very bubbly people and very open-minded as well, So it's something that I look to always look at when it comes to the small kids.
Absolutely fantastic. For anyone who's just tuned in, we are chatting to Mpilo Njoloza, former professional cricketer, now an educator in the Eastern Cape, and he's talking us through his journey. And look, the clock is ticking, and anyone watching out there, please just pop in a few questions in the chat, and we'll definitely ensure that we ask Milo those questions. But before we get to all those questions, Milo, and I'm sure they're probably piling up in the chat, before we get to those questions, you talk about being an educator and looking back and having been privileged enough to be on the sidelines and watch you play, That aggressive fast bowler,
can see where this
bowling
goes.
all those bounces, and I had someone on Twitter say how scared they were to face you when you bowled, and now you are this gentle giant in the classroom. How about that?
You know, Mamzi, it's something that you know, I'm always a gentle giant off the field. You know, it's always something that always just happens on the field. So I think guys mustn't look at it that way. What happens on the field stays on the field, and like you say, I mean, I'm off the field now, so I'm obviously having to learn, like you had mentioned earlier, from the little kids that you know, it's not always about coming hard and a bit of banter. You know, you must also be able to take it. You know, so yeah, I've been able to adjust, Bums.
I'm sure there are a lot of relieved guys out there who don't have to face Milo again. So I'm sure they're all happy. I'm looking through the chat here. The first question we have is from Nicholas Koch, and he says, "What is Milo doing now?" I think he tuned in a bit late, so you can update him what you're up to.
To be fair to Koki, actually, he was the one that wanted me to do a PGCE back when I was still at UWC, and I'd actually gone against that. But currently, Nick, I'm actually an educator at a school here in East London, and I also coach cricket in the afternoon. So I ended up following the path that you had said I must follow. So yeah.
Oh, fantastic. It's funny how the old people are always wise and know what's before us before we see it coming, isn't it?
Correct. Correct.
So we have another question in the chat here. I'm just reading here, and there is a request to ask you what your second name is. That is from Dean Majawidza.
My second name is Upuka. Oh, Dean.
That is a bit of a tongue twister. You said Upuka.
Puka. Yeah. Puka. Mpilo Puka.
What does that mean? It's a beautiful clicky name.
Upuka is to basically almost to roll yourself on the flag. Upuka. So it's that, and also to almost like finish. So we get white puka. So that's the meaning of upuka.
Fantastic. We have another question here. I'm reading. It's from Anesusini Andoro. He says, "You were leading wicket taker in the 2018-19 CSA Provincial One-Day Challenge." Wow. You see, when you're famous like this, everyone knows who you are. There's two questions here. Do you remember how many wickets you took?
Yes, I do.
How many did you take?
24 sticks.
24 sticks. Honestly, you can confirm that in the chat since you know all about this. And there's another question where he says, which one was your most memorable decision? Dismissal, sorry. Most memorable dismissal.
I think it was in Durban in January of that year, 2020, 2019, actually last year, correct, yeah. And I'd obviously heard that the Cobras had signed 2 more fellow fast bowlers, and I think I ended up getting a 5-5 that day. And I think that was definitely something that kind of inspired me to kind of perform. So I really enjoyed that 5 in January in Durban.
Is there one dismissal you can pick out from there that you can say, okay, this was an absolute peach?
The 5th wicket. I know it was to, I think, a number 9, but the ball kind of pitched on leg and it shaped and hit the top of off. So it was actually a peach of a delivery, if I'd say so myself.
I see you're waiting for the one-eyed pirate at 9, 10, and 11 to clean up. But it's wickets. It's wickets. They all count as long as they're in the book.
Definitely.
I see there's another question again. Nicholas Koch is back here. He says, take us through your hat trick against the Dolphins.
It was actually a very interesting hat trick. And I played cricket for so many years, and I also didn't even know that you get a hat trick like that. So I've gotten 1 wicket of the in the innings before. They were following on, so I got the last wicket, which was obviously the 10th wicket. And then, funny enough, I wasn't going to open the bowling that day, but Bjorn Hendricks had been off the field attending to the physio when I got on that wicket. So obviously, he had to wait the time I was off the field. And then that's when Onta said, I can obviously open the bowling with Pato. And then I got a wicket with the first two balls that I'd started my first over of the new innings. Found out from Justin Kemp that it was actually a hat-trick. So it was actually a very interesting hat-trick where it was a hat-trick from the innings before and then getting 2 wickets of your first 2 balls in the new innings.
Wow, fantastic. I never knew that you could get a hat-trick like that.
Yeah.
Wow, you learn something new every day, don't you?
Every day, yeah.
So look, Milo, we are running out of time. This has gone so quickly. When you're having fun, time goes very, very quickly.
Definitely.
But there's certain aspects that as Africa Sports Consultancy, we never want professional people like you who've walked the path to walk away from here and not give the viewers back home. So for any kids watching out there, any young boys, young girls, what advice would you have for them around the sport?
I think firstly, they must go out there to enjoy it. That is the most important thing. I think a lot of sportsmen are backing away from nowadays. There's obviously a lot of pressure when it comes to professional sport, but I think with the young kids, it's just to enjoy it and don't be scared to ask questions, because I mean, by asking those questions, that's also improving their technical abilities and also improving their game. So I think those are the 2 aspects that I'd say to the young kids out there.
That's an absolute gem. And like you mentioned earlier, it was when you played with lots of freedom that you did very well. So I'm connecting those 2 and putting them together. And Milo, you've obviously had, I want to just focus on your cricketing career. You've had lots of highs, couple of lows. And what is one thing that you look back on today and you think, I wish I hadn't done that in your cricketing career?
In my cricketing career, I'd probably say 2009. I'd actually stopped playing the game. I was actually under pressure with schoolwork, and I kind of just decided to take a year off the game. But it kind of helped me in a way in that I was able to catch up with the schoolwork. So I think that's maybe something that like you say, I probably shouldn't have done it, but in a way, it also helped me out on the other side. So it was a bit of a gamble that paid off in a way.
Yeah, definitely. And from what you're saying, I can believe that. Milo, a couple of minutes to go, but for you to get to where you've gotten to, you've certainly not done this alone. I'm sure you have a few people to thank for be it your cricketing success, your academic or job success. So are there a couple of people that stand out to you? And I know there's a long list, and if you're watching or anyone else is going to watch this, no offense, but Milo's just going to pick out a couple of people that have helped him along his journey.
I think I'll start in PE when I was still in PE, and there's an old man there named Tatutonomle. He helped me very much when I was in PE. Looked after me very well that side. And Pete Porter, who's the current senior provincial coach. That's in PE. And then in Cape Town, Cocky has to definitely come up. I mean, he's the main man that got me to come that side, to even get involved with Western Province cricket was all through him. So I really appreciate that when it comes to him. And again, I mean, he's the one that introduced me to Sean Langeveld, who's also someone that I really hold close to my heart as he instilled that belief in me again. You know, obviously having to just stop the professional setup and just play cricket was also something that I had stopped. So yeah, I think Langas and Nick in Cape Town.
I want to ask you about a couple of stories with you and Langas, but we are running out of time. And we are at the end of the show, so we'd have to save those for another time. But Milo, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just had Mpilo Njoloza on the show. Thank you for coming, Milo.
Thank you very much for having me, Mamzi.
It's an absolute pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much again for tuning in tonight, watching the show. And it's always great to have you here. And we always look to inspire and to empower athletes, be it young or old. And we do hope that these videos can go out and impact society and impact young people who also want to make a life for themselves and take the template that Milo has set out for everyone. And on that note, we'd just like to say, stay safe. We know the COVID cases are rising. Stay safe, keep sanitizing, look after your loved ones, and have yourselves a good night. And until next week, it's bye from myself and Milo.